of Radnor Township meeting for June 7th, 2010 to call to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the April 5th, 2010 meeting. I believe they've been distributed to everyone, and everyone's read them and reviewed them. Do we have any comments, changes, questions regarding the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on my agenda is subdivision number 2010 S01, Final Valley Forge Military Academy. This is an announcement that the application has been formally withdrawn by the Valley Forge Military Academy and therefore is being taken off our agenda. The next item on our agenda is recommendation to the Board of Commissioners regarding discussion of the PLU zoning change. Dan, would you like to discuss that?
I can certainly introduce the language to you and tell you how we got here. This was actually introduced by the Board of Commissioners at their April 26th meeting, and it basically came from a number of discussions the township staff had with the township solicitor. In that, some of the ongoing conversations we had about some caretakers we have at the Willows and the Kreuzberg Center, and the discussions of renting out the third floor of this building, we realized that the public land use language does not permit some of those practices from taking place. So we started looking at the language, and as you can see, there are a number of small additions that the solicitor has put into place. Staff has looked it over and gotten back to the solicitor, and this is kind of what we think should be the final version. But bottom line is we're looking for the Planning Commission's input and to give us feedback so we can pass it on to the commissioners.
Dan, has this been forwarded to the Delaware County Planning Commission for review?
I believe it has. We have not gotten anything back from them,
okay.
though.
Okay. Everyone who has a copy of this, the proposed changes are underlined. Dan, is there a specific area that has been changed regarding for the rental of possible offices up here to, I guess it's in the number K is specific to that, office uses of existing Radnor Township buildings for governmental, educational, civic, philanthropic, or other nonprofit organizations?
Exactly, that's correct.
And then accessory residential or caretaker use within existing Radnor Township buildings.
And that would fall into the Willows and the Kreuzberg Center.
Okay. Does anyone else on the Planning Commission have any questions regarding the PLU? The change to the PLU ordinance?
Yeah, I did have a question about, we limit this exclusively to outlease to nonprofits and to other government entities, is that right? It's not like we couldn't rent it to if we had office space, we couldn't rent it to an engineering firm or something that wouldn't have a lot of public contact?
I believe by the reading of K, which states office uses of existing Radnor Township buildings for governmental, educational, civic, philanthropic, and other nonprofit organizations would limit it just to office use of those types and not a for-profit organization or business. So no, it wouldn't be for engineering firms, lawyers, the other professionals, or anything along those lines.
Dan, where do you fit in the Willows under one of these categories?
The Willows was something about caretaker.
I believe it's L1 and L3. L1
Yes.
reads accessory residential or caretaker use within existing Radnor Township buildings. L2, accessory agricultural or agricultural retail. L3, accessory catering operation to a permitted use. So I think that really those three were the entire Willows compound addressing that aspect.
That's correct.
I had a question. How did the agricultural retail piece get in here? I mean, what is that? What was thought? What does that
Well,
come
that's
from?
specific to the Willows Cottage.
Okay.
So,
So they can have a farmer's market or something there?
correct.
Okay.
Dan, what about just the use of the Willows as a as a gathering place? Where does that fall? As a,
Well, that's a park, so I don't know that that needed to be addressed. We tried to hit up the catering operation was not specifically permitted for the Willows. So we wanted to include that for, I think, where you're going, where it's being rented out and there's a caterer involved. So, but the fact that it's a township park, a lot of that is already understood.
it's part of D.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's no change for D.
Any other questions from, any comments or public? If you could please state your name.
My name is Patty Barker. I live on Lewis Lane in Rosemont. I'm the chair of the Garrett Hill Coalition, and Garrett Hillians oppose any expansion of school board use for PLU. We believe it's unnecessary and provides no clear benefit to the residents of Radnor Township. My husband, Rick Barker, is the chair of the Garrett Hill Implementation Committee. He was unable to be here this evening, but he asked me to state that he also recommends, the IC recommends no expansion of school board use for PLU, as this could negatively impact the Garrett Hill zoning district. Thank you.
Well, could you be more specific? What specifically are you talking about?
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't bring out the piece of paper with me, but in there under public schools, on the first page, I forget what the number is.
Yeah, it's, Patty, I'll just read it for you.
Yeah, thanks.
B, public schools, what's included now. It used to just say public schools and
Correct.
no further definition. It now says public schools dash, this use includes facilities of the Radnor Township School District and school-related uses in support of or accessory to the school district.
Right.
And you say you're opposed to that, and why?
Because Garrett Hillians are trying to preserve that as open space as much as possible, and I understand it's a school board property, and if they
You mean the
choose to build a
parks?
school there, yes. Emlyn Tennell is a park in Garrett Hill. And when we came before you with regard to the Garrett Hill zoning district, we had a whole conversation about open space versus PLU. Bottom line is it was decided, because of the school board's concern, that it would stay as PLU. And we're fine with that. Our concern is that if the uses, if it says public schools plus accessory uses, that let's say they wanted to put a bus depot in there or something else that would negatively impact the community. Right now, the community, and it's not just Garrett Hill, but all sorts of Radnor Township teams use Emlyn Tennell Field for sports and for the enjoyment of, the community. So Garrett Hillians are opposed to doing anything that will expand the school board's ability to put anything other than schools in there. So is that specific enough?
And the park now is currently zoned PLU or
Correct.
not? the
Yes,
school?
and when the Garrett Hill zoning district documents were passed in October, Clem McCrone is zoned now as open space, but Emlyn Tennell is still PLU.
And that's the one on Garrett Avenue?
Correct. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patty. Any other public comment regarding the PLU?
Sarah Pilling from 29 Garrett Avenue. I have some real question about M1, which is radio and television towers. I think we don't need, I know the technology is moving very rapidly, but I'm concerned about putting 120-foot towers in some of these parks with kids playing because we really don't know what's happening. And I have some concern about that. Yes, under the new Communication Council Senate, Radnor House, formerly Chetwin, is loaded with them, and that's fine. It was made so that it could be in R5, but I have some real concern about loading these parks up with communication towers. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Any other comments from the board? I think I'd like to wait to see the response from the Delaware County Planning Authority before we move forward on this. It is the first time before this board, this change in the ordinance, so I would like to table this matter for another month and wait for the response from Delaware County.
Can I make, I raised the point before about why we wouldn't want to at least permit the possibility of a private firm or somebody entering this if the space were vacant.
Okay.
Have we considered what the impact of that would be, or do we care?
Again, it's open for discussion.
I think if it's a compatible use, I don't know why you wouldn't consider it. It's a way for the township to potentially generate revenue. Are we restricted, Dan, by any type of use?
No, I know at one point there was, I think last year we threw it out threw the idea out to some various firms. And an engineering firm did come and look at the building, and I know there was some concern expressed by some of the commissioners that renting it to someone who the township would do business with, you know, say somebody doing a land development plan by that firm doing the land development, would possibly appear to have a conflict of interest. So that was the only concern that I heard.
I just add to that, Dan. It is the PLU, and we refer to it as the PLU, is the public land use district. And along with the establishment and the purpose is the beginning section. It specifically says a new zoning classification, when this was enacted, obviously, in 1989. It says a new zoning classification, hereinafter referred to as the Public Land Use District, PLU, is established along with standards for use and development within such district, which shall be designed to make special provisions for facilities and uses which are non-commercial, public service oriented, and which are owned by the township, school district, county, state, and federal government, other public authorities, or public, oh, I lost my place, sorry. Well, again, you get my gist. It seems like it, because it's public land use, it'd really be public. I wonder, I guess we can check with the solicitor, ask Dan to check with the solicitor. There might be some laws or regulations that we cannot treat it truly as a for-profit center since it is publicly owned land. So it'd probably be something, but we can definitely look into it because obviously if we are underutilizing and there is revenue to be generated and we can generate revenue legally in this day and age, well, it's always a good thing for the township.
I
So,
think we
Dan,
need
if
to
you could follow
consider
up on that.
also that you could have a conflict of interest, obviously with an engineering firm or a similar firm, but you could also have a conflict of interest with a not-for-profit.
Okay,
So we need to take that into account.
I agree. Any, okay. Can I have a motion to table for the next
I'd vote.
second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Next on my agenda is we still need a member of the Planning Commission to fill a vacancy on the Environmental Advisory Council. I'd ask for any volunteers. If not, I might so appoint one, but we'll give another month for volunteer status, and then we'll go with the last person to step backwards routine. Next on the agenda, under old business, is an update from Steve Palantonio, the chair of the Implementation Committee, and he'll update us on the zoning ordinance review subcommittee. Close enough?
Thank you, Mark. Excuse my voice, there's a little bit of allergies. I'm here tonight just to give a quick update on the subcommittee that was formed to review the zoning ordinances, and that's all of the ordinances. The Board of Commissioners authorized the Implementation Committee to review these, and we took that, and what we did is we made a subcommittee with 4 members from the Implementation Committee and 4 members from the Planning Commission. And the goal and mission of that committee is to look at each of the ordinances to see where we can tighten them up, see where we could change them, see where we could bring them up to current day and age, so to speak. A lot of them are a little bit outdated with some different verbiage and so forth. So we had our first meeting. Well, actually, the members from the Planning Commission on the committee are Matt Marshall, Doug McCone, Julie Earl, and Susan Stearns, who are not here. And from the implementation committees, myself, Cheryl Tamola, Rick Barker, and Jim Greenfield. Jim Greenfield's a real estate attorney, so he's been very, very helpful in making sure that whatever we suggest or write or change has some validity and that it's not very challengeable in court where we would lose. We want to make sure we get something that will stick. So it's been a very helpful process. We did meet on Tuesday, April 27th, the 8 of us, and the goal of that meeting was to see procedurally how we were going to operate, what our mission was, and get some timelines down, which we did do. What we decided on was that, well, we started to review let me back up for a second here. Before that meeting, we wanted to prioritize what we were going to review first, and hands down it was the PI, Plan Institution, because we felt that that had the most impact, immediate impact on the township, wherever, if something would happen. So what we did was, excuse me again, we had a meeting on the 27th, and we looked at the PI zoning, and what we decided to do was have everybody over the next month review it themselves, forward their comments, changes, additions, deletions, and so forth to myself. And we're going to put them together, and actually we're meeting again this Wednesday evening to look at it further. Hopefully at that time we'll be able to get a consensus of what we need to do for the PI zoning. We have Jim Greenfield take a look at it again. And if we feel comfortable enough with that baseline draft, then we're going to ask for public input, however meetings it's going to take to get public participation and ideas and so forth that we may have missed or overlooked, which is entirely possible. Once we get that, we're going to come back, finalize a draft, hopefully give it to the Board of Commissioners for introduction. Hopefully they'll pass it, which I then assume will go back to the Planning Commission for the formal process of review and adoption, and then back up to the Planning Commission. So at least from our end, from our subcommittee, there'll be plenty of opportunity for public participation. We just don't know the timeline of that yet because we're not sure when we'll be done enough, confident enough to move forward with that. The other thing we don't want to do is have it the day everybody leaves for Avalon or something that's unfair to the community, but we don't want to wait too long because it's very time sensitive. Just laying out the protocol to go to commissioners, to you guys, public meetings, that's 4 months right there. I mean, so we're trying to, go as fast as we can with this, knowing the sensitivity of that, but at the same time, we want to try to be fair to everybody that does want to participate. After we're done with PI, then we're just going to roll into another area of the zoning code. We're not sure exactly what that is yet, but that's our plan and our process. And maybe different people rotate off and on depending on what their specialty and interest is, but the same core group or the same format of the 4 and 4 or 5 and 5, whatever it would be. I think so far it's been working well because I think everybody from planning and even from our board, we're double duty, triple dutying and so forth with volunteering in the township. It's very tough to get everybody together, and but so far everybody's been very cooperative and they understand the importance of this. So that's pretty much it, Mark, and hopefully that would answer any questions, or if there are any questions, I have no problem answering them.
Very good, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, what I was just going to reiterate is, from what you said, Steve, you're meeting again this Wednesday to hopefully finalize the first draft of the the new versions or changes to the planned institutional district.
Yes, but
You will
we're
then-
going to. I'm sorry.
Go
Can we
ahead,
just?
go ahead.
We're going to get all the feedback from our group, and put it all together. And hopefully we have enough that, I think, just judging from what I have so far, we've looked like we touched about on every topic that we had looked at,
Okay.
at least to discuss. Hopefully that's a game plan. We can get it draft enough for a baseline that we can at least go public.
And after that, you'll be holding public meetings
Yes,
as in your capacity as the implementation committee,
yes,
open to the public.
Absolutely.
And hopefully by the end of the next couple of weeks, you'll have something along those lines.
yeah. And what we're going to try to do is stagger them because a lot of people can't make nights. So if we can have something at 9 a.m., I don't know, but just so everybody has the opportunity to participate, I think is important. So we're going to throw out some dates once we get organized to see what might work for everybody. Obviously, reserve a room or two at the Windsor Room, or even if in this building, whatever we can. But I do want to try to stagger to try to get as many people as possible to give some input. And then public will take it back, finalize Board of Commissioners introduction, and then back to you guys.
And just so the public understands, the way it does work is after the implementation committee has their public meetings, as Steve said, they finalize the draft, they take it up to the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners then introduces the ordinance for our review, and it gets sent back to us, which we then have as many public meetings as it takes to have public participation and the like. Patty can speak pretty well to that about the numerous meetings we've had over the Garrett Hill zoning ordinance. And then after we've reviewed it and are comfortable with it, we then send it back up to the Board of Commissioners for final approval if in fact we deem it appropriate.
Right.
Okay. Does anyone else on the commission have questions?
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Next on the agenda is new business. I have a letter from the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission addressed to our township manager. The Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission Regional Citizens Committee is hosting a special public meeting on Wednesday, June 9th, 2010 at 6 p.m. at the Saturday Club in Wayne. In Wayne. This will be the first in a series of listening sessions that will be held around the region. The goal of the meeting is to reach residents, businesses, municipalities, organizations, and other stakeholders in the greater Philadelphia region to inform them about the DVRPC and public participation activities such as membership on the RCC. Also, Michael Boyer, manager of the DVRPC, Office of Long Range Planning and Economic Coordination, will be presenting Connections, a regional plan for sustainable futures. Connections is DVRPC's federally mandated long-range plan for the region and covers topics in transportation, environmental, and land use and economic development. We hope the meeting will provide an opportunity for a continuing dialogue between the public and DVRPC regarding the most important issues facing the region. DVRPC and staff and RCC members look forward to your participation. Again, that is Wednesday, June 9th, 2010 at the Saturday Club in Wayne. So I just wanted to make that announcement. The final thing on my agenda is public participation. As I'm assuming that you are not all here to hear the PLU zoning district ordinance, I would ask, I'm assuming that this has to do with something along the lines of the PI, the Planned Institutional District. I would ask the residents to keep their comments directed towards the Planned Institutional District. This commission, the Planning Commission, is authorized to discuss, render opinions, and make recommendations on subdivision land development applications that have been filed and are currently pending in the township. There is currently nothing in the pending in the township from either VFMA or Eastern University. I understand there are concerns. If you can couch your comments in regard to changes or proposed changes to the Planned Institutional District, we have no problem listening to them. It really is inappropriate for us to designate specific parcels at this time, especially since we are in the process of changing the Planned Institutional District. It could affect the viability, the long-term enforceability of the changes that we're trying to implement with the Planned Institutional. So we need to be very careful about how things are couched with regard to your concerns. With that, I'd be more than happy and open to public comment. And please name and address when you come to the podium. Name and address when you come to the podium. Thank you.
My name is Colleen Price, and I live at 352 Shimoni Road in St. David's. I had actually talked to a few people about coming here for the exact purpose that you want us to talk about is you're redoing the comprehensive plan. Let's talk about planned institution uses and what we can do to address what's going to happen. I think you've got like a 20-year look. Is that the idea of a comprehensive plan? Let's see what's going to happen. And just in my neck of the woods, things have changed very, very quickly. We've had 3 really small colleges. I mean, Valley Forge Military was practically extinct. We've had nobody really operating in our backyard. All of a sudden, Eastern's getting bigger, they're acquiring property, then we find out not only did they buy 19 acres that they intend to develop, they've now leased a huge section of Valley Forge Military Academy. And they're not leasing it just for their own purposes, they're gonna have joint use with Valley Forge Military Academy. So what we've set up now is we have overlapping uses in our backyard. So I've been kind of keyed into this for a long time because about 2.5 years ago, I guess Eastern did their last development and they put in, I think, 75,000 square feet of space. Almost immediately, they were out of parking. So they leased 150 spaces across the street from me. I didn't know that that's what was going on, and at 1:30 in the morning, I kept getting, people waking me up, coming back to the campus. So I went before the Board of Commissioners, and I said, there's this leasing operation that's going on with these schools, and can we address what's going on with the three of them together? And I think at the time, it sounded like science fiction that they were going to actually work together, and as things have unfolded, it's exactly what's going on over there. Right now, Eastern bought the 19 acres. They're leasing back faculty housing to Valley Forge. They have joint use of apartment buildings, tennis courts, several fields. I don't know if that means the football field, the baseball fields. There's an awful lot of use going back and forth. Cabrini leases a dorm. They leased parking from Valley Forge. Their former president is on the board of Valley Forge Military Academy. I mean, there's absolutely an incestuous circle going on here. They all cross-register for classes. Cabrini and Eastern set up a little walkway across Eagle so they can get back and forth to take each other's classes. So it really, in my mind, the more I looked at this, they're almost functioning as one unit. So I've been pulling their 5-year plans and looking at, just trying to get ahead of, of what they're doing here. And when I pulled their plans and I looked at how big they were, it was really staggering. I mean, Eastern University is now 116 acres. Valley Forge Military Academy is 100. Cabrini's 114. If you add that up, it's 330 acres that can function as one college. So just to get a comparison, I looked at Villanova. That's only 254 acres. So when you end up with a campus that could be 70 acres bigger than Villanova, you have a really big operation in our backyard. And then I just did an estimate. Villanova has about 7,000 undergraduates and like 4,000 they call postgraduates. I don't know if that means, the law school, whether it's non-matriculating students, people in CLEs, whatever. You've got about 11,000 people. And I just did a quick example of 11,000 over 254 acres equals what over 330 acres. And I came up with 14,000 people. I mean, that's downright frightening if that's how many people could end up in our backyard. So when we're doing the comprehensive plan and we're looking at these planned institutions back here, I think that's something that you really need to consider is how big they are. And I don't think anyone really thought of that when they thought of these 3 colleges and how they would, act separately. And Valley Forge Military Academy is really, really changing. They don't want to, I read in the newspaper, they're trying to get rid of that 6th through 12th grade program, which was really no commuters, lots of, the 300 nice kids who would salute you, like the 15-year-old kid going in to get pizza at Bravo. They are now moving on to build a $32 million college. It's big. It's really big. It's about 100,000 square feet. Whole different group of people in cars when they go to college. It's not the kids that we're used to. Eastern has, on their website, they say they have 4,000 students. I think they're saying they have like 1,200 or so on their campus. They collapse a few of those campus satellites. They're right in our backyard, and they could be there tomorrow. One of the things I don't know how to address, and this might be something that would come up in the comprehensive plan, is what's the effect of this whole leasing arrangement and the joint use? What happened immediately is Eastern announced now that they don't have to keep their own baseball fields, they can tear up their fields and put a building there. Cabrini can do the same. Villanova can go start renting those fields. I mean, the amount of traffic that can start coming down our roads could be huge. We know Route 30 can't handle Villanova at certain times. Chamonix Road can't handle it. I mean, we know what's going to happen if it keeps coming along at that rate. And on the colleges, I mean, I know they bring in jobs. They do have a good side, but they do cost us money. They don't pay any taxes. And I called this school board, and last year we as taxpayers spent $111,000 to educate Valley Forge Military Academy's kids. If they come in faculty housing, they get a half-rate discount to come to our schools. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of aides that wouldn't have lost their job this year if they had to pay the full boat. And then there's a whole issue, we have this classification in PI of faculty housing and staff. Who's faculty? Who's staff? If I cut the lawn once a week on my staff, At Valley Forge, they have 40 faculty houses. They only had 300 kids. That's a 1-to-7 ratio. What were people doing there? Does anybody check? Do we know if they are faculty? Are they staff? These are just things I just wanted you to think about, because as I read the PI zone, I think these are kind of holes, and maybe the idea of having faculty housing made sense when you had a military college and you needed people to watch these 6th graders who were living there. I don't know if it really needs to continue. And the whole idea of what are the college features. You know, they don't close at 5 anymore. They have vibrant night schools. They have continuous year-round use. Over at Eastern, they've got science explorers, they've got future stars, they've got the field hockey camp, the soccer camp. Just recently, they had some huge group from, I think it's Korea, because they put up signs, it's all in Korean, I can't read it. And there are families there, and they absolutely packed the place. So there's this whole continuous use that goes on. It's another consideration that I don't think was in the planned use idea when we developed the plan 20 years ago. And they have the same capacity to just rent out their facilities, lecture halls, convention centers. Again, those are things that I think should be considered. And I think some people I looked at the general draft of the comprehensive plan, a lot of people were raising that issue with Villanova. If you have things that are really just profit-making ventures, maybe you should pay some tax on that. Again, it's, the access issues. Everybody comes up and says the same thing. Oh my God, the development's coming in. We're going to have too many people and too much traffic. I think that's really true here. And more students means more cars. And what are students? They're in that age group. They're 19 to 22, 23. And every actuarial table in the world will, prove that they drive fast. They're aggressive drivers. And they're not going to get older next year. They're going to be 19 forever and keep coming down our streets. And if we, as Chamonix Road, that's where I am, become the main roadway, it's really causing trouble for us. And Eastern's answer is that we're just going to shuttle. Well, the only accident that anybody knows of on Chamonix Road is when Cabrini's shuttle bus hit a woman who was walking on Chamonix Road. I mean, if that's not enough said, I don't know where to go with it. And the whole idea that Eastern said they're going to shuttle people. I mean, think about it. If they have 1,200 undergraduate students and they've now just leased fields way up in TE, how are they going to get there? 1,200 kids is Radnor High School. So look at Radnor High School and how many buses does it take to move 1,200 people to send those kids home? They're going to bus them all up to Radnor Street Road? I mean, it's just not possible. It's really just not logistically possible. So we really need to think about, pedestrian access routes. The one that I've heard that I really found very alarming is they intend to come through Fenimore Woods. I mean, I thought it would, there's a park purpose there. You can go use the tot lot and hang on the swings, but it's not supposed to be a college pathway. After they come through there, they're coming across my lawn or my neighbor's lawn. I mean, again, I don't mind having sidewalks for residents, but I certainly don't think we should have sidewalks to become a college pathway. I think that's outrageous. Then the park closes at dusk. So what happens at 4:30 when they've made this route and they're coming through the park? Well, they can't come through the park. Now they're going to start going down Fenimore Road. Now all those people are going to be disrupted. These are just, ideas that to put in your mind about how we develop this comprehensive plan. And the whole idea of the train station, there's no reason to come to the St. David train station. Cabrini already goes to the Radnor train station. It's a bigger facility. It's so much easier to get there. It's faster for them. The idea of coming down St. David's, they get off that train station, they come down Chamonix Road and they go through a shortcut, but they're nowhere. They're in the back of Ginny Mullenix's backyard. And by the time they get to where the classrooms are, it's faster to go down King of Prussia Road. So if we could address moving that traffic over to King of Prussia Road, take the train from King of Prussia Road. Maybe Cabrini and Eastern could do a joint shuttle from that section rather than driving people down Chamonix. I mean, we know what happens. Like, what I see in my mind is Halloween. Halloween on Chamonix Road is crazy. Every kid in Eastern comes out, and it really shuts down the road. If we're going to have that every day, Chamonix Road's a goner. We won't be able to go down there. If they're going to come through Fenimore Woods, I end up being the corner of Lancaster and Ithan we know what happens when Villanova kids have to go back and forth. And if the numbers hold that they could get maybe 14,000 people back there, you really have to look at addressing the issues of what's going to happen on our streets. I mean, I understand that if they come in and they have the legal right, they've got the right percentage building area and they've got their parking lot, you're going to have to approve it. Maybe those are the areas you have to look at. Maybe we have to start shrinking up the space of what they can use, because I don't know what else to do. The whole idea, too, with the whole parking requirements, I don't know how we calculate parking requirements for, say, a college. I mean, I think the old days, you assume that maybe 75% of the kids are in the dorms, and then the other 25% drive. Well, that does happen, it's probably the same today, but they have night school, where they're going to come in and overlap, and those kids who are in the dorms aren't leaving. So where are these cars going? I think maybe our parking requirements are probably outdated, considering the way colleges are used today. And this whole idea of this going up on the athletic fields in TE, the zoning code is designed that if you have a college and you have your educational buildings in one place, you're supposed to keep all your accessory stuff on the same lot. Don't build your dorm on a lot that isn't next to the buildings. Don't put your athletic fields on a separate lot. We want this all to be one unit. And what they've done is they've gone up and done exactly that. You have Eastern over here, and you have athletic fields way up on the other end of Radnor Street Road. Had they owned that property and it was in Radnor, they wouldn't be able to do it. So I think, they're saying, well, it's in TE, we don't have to consider that. Well, maybe that's something we can consider. Look at the impact when you just cross over the border and you do exactly what you're not allowed to do in Radnor zoning. I think they call it extraterritorial zoning. Municipality can kind of just look a little bit over the line to say, we know what you're up to. This wasn't permitted here. Don't think because you stepped over the line that we don't get it and we don't realize the impact that we're going to get. And we have the power to really preserve a residential neighborhood. And that's really what we're looking for. We're not trying to kill Valley Forge or Eastern. We want them to thrive. We want to have healthy schools back there, but there's got to be a balance where they stay out of the residential neighborhoods. When all the student housing started coming to this area, we rallied. There was student housing ordinances that came in. They're probably the most restrictive in the state. You can't have more than 2 students live together anywhere in Radnor Township. I mean, if you have a 5-bedroom house, you can only have 2 students. So we only allow them a student house, once every 1,000 feet. So you would only allow 4 students in every 1,000 feet, and I could have 10,000 of them coming through Fenimore Woods. I mean, there's just something that's off on the balance there, and I think we do have the right. It's a legitimate interest of the township to preserve our residential neighborhoods. And looking at the numbers and the capacity, I think that we have to take action to try and do that. And then, Eastern's supposed to give us updated plans. They're already late on their plan. I think Valley Forge has till July. Cabrini's I couldn't find on record. Just so we know what's going on. That's supposed to be the point. Because they're nonprofits and they're public, nonprofit institutions, we give them other requirements. We want them to keep us abreast and give us advance public notice. And when they don't do that, they're violating the zoning code. And something should be done about it. I've raised the question a number of times, and nothing's happened. And I think there's really not enough teeth in that section to really enforce it. So, I'm just summarizing my whole idea is that let's preserve the residential feel of our neighborhood. Let's make the buffer zones even bigger if we have to. Let's get the traffic off of small roads, get them out on the major streets, King of Prussia Road and Upper Gulf. Go to the other train stations. Stop coming down Shimoni Road. Let's not play the game that we're going to increase shuttles, because all it's going to do is cause accidents, and it'll be like, watch the tram car. I mean, how many shuttles can you send down Shimoni Road to move all of these people? And then the final point is, you could always ask the colleges like Villanova just for a little self-restraint. Villanova has imposed a limit on how many students they want to take. We could ask them to do the same thing. I mean, I live across the street from them. I did a conservation easement on my property. Believe me, it wasn't easy. I had every right to subdivide. I know how they feel. I can do whatever I want. I came to the Planning Commission, and you made me feel so guilty about doing it that I ended up doing a conservation easement instead of subdividing. So maybe if we could bring the colleges in and had a public meeting and they could talk to the residents and see how we feel, maybe they would do the same thing. And my neighbors, the Toomey's, did the same thing. They put in deed restrictions. They have 2 5-acre lots. So if they look at the people right next to them, maybe they could, take a lesson from us and just realize that they're just too big to operate and just to continue to grow without any kind of limitations. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Okay. Is there any other public comment?
Good evening. My name is Christina Peroni, and I live 234 Walnut Avenue, which is catty corner from the lots that we're talking about. So I also have a lot of interest in preserving our residential community, not only because it's my backyard, but because I believe that we need to keep this public process open and transparent. And what I've seen, I just moved there 2 weeks ago, and what I've seen in this very limited process of up until when I put money down on this property was that Valley Forge submitted their plan, then they withdrew their plan, then they submitted their plan. And every time there would be some public conversation, they would change all the rules because they'd hear what the public issues were. And my hope is from, what I just heard about Mr. Palantonio, it would be lovely if somebody like Mrs. Price could actually be part of that, because she's clearly an unbelievably informed resident who understands real estate, understands, the issues of the whole community and the impact of the 3 different colleges. And I would just ask this board if you would consider adding, I don't even know if she would serve. She doesn't know anything about this, but it would be great to have somebody who really understands. I mean, as all of you know, it's the devil's in the details, and if you don't have somebody who takes the time to understand the details, that's when things sneak in there that could be really devastating, and maybe not on purpose, just nobody thought it through. So while I appreciate that they're planning to bring this to the public after they've had some conversations, I believe that the dialogue should be public. So if Mr. Palantonio, instead of just bringing us a formed idea, if he could have all those meetings in public, that would be one issue that I think would save both parties. Why have them come up with an idea that the public's going to be totally against? So that's one idea. Is that something the board would consider? Can we make the whole process public?
I will answer 2 questions. Your first question was whether this commission could appoint Ms. Price. This commission is advisory only and has no authority to appoint. It is the Board of Commissioners that are have the only authority to appoint, I believe, Steve, to your committee? The Board of Commissions are the ones that have the authority to appoint to your committee. They do have that. Yeah, you don't, and this commission does not. So the Board of Commissioners are the only appointing authority. So
Okay.
To that regard, we are strictly advisory to the Board of Commissioners. We have no authority to make appointments with the exception of, like I said earlier, an appointment to the environmental, that's an internal appointment to a different commission. So in that regard. The second question was regard to the implementation committee publicness of it. I know that you guys do hold public hearings. I believe it was your intent just to get a draft basis and then open it to public meetings so that it would be fully vetted. And again, I don't create the ground rules. I just know that that's the way it's been done in the past through the Wayne Business Overlay District and other
Right.
Zoning ordinances that have been passed through.
But the impact is so tremendous on this, considering it's changing zoning rules. The question is, would Mr. Palantonio consider making the whole process public so that it's fully transparent, and once something's out in the public, it's already had chance to be vetted throughout the process? So is that something that would be considered?
I'm sure Mr. Palantonio would be open to discussion on that. I'm not sure whether he's open to discussion right now. The only thing that I'm not sure, again, when the appointment was made, Christina, I'm not sure about the Board of Commissioners. And again, I wasn't aware, the Board of Commissioners made the appointment for this subcommittee. And I know right now the subcommittee is a mixture of Planning Commission members and Implementation Committee members. And I'm not sure if that was done by purpose or whether that was done by not.
I can tell you what,
How did the commission get appointed? Did you decide on the people on the committee?
no, I used to, whoever wanted to volunteer for the planning and implementation.
So it was a volunteer. So Ms. Price could volunteer?
Well, she's not on planning, she's not on implementation, was the whole idea. After Wednesday, we should be able to go public anyway. Now, the problem with this is, in order to get everybody that's in this commission, everybody that's in my commission, a date and time was like the invasion of D-Day, trying to organize that. So in order to have a public meeting with public notification, et cetera, logistically, it was kind of almost out of the question. That's why we wanted to get a couple under our belt, at least get something down that, so when we passed it out, here's our recommendations, what everybody else can do. So we're hope after Wednesday night, excuse me, that this will be, and Colleen or whoever, I mean, if Colleen Price wants to be on, who's to say whoever else wanted to be on it as well? Not on the committee, but if we let Colleen on right now, why not Mike O'Neill? Why not anybody else? So, I mean, we want to control it, but at the same time, once we get it, rock and roll. It's going to be all open to public.
After Wednesday, you have your first meeting, then the meeting
It'll be our second meeting.
That'll be your second meeting.
We're going to hold public meetings
Right
to
after
get all
that.
that. Yeah, we don't know exactly when.
But would you mind just publicizing that?
Well, we will.
The dates? And then
Oh, absolutely. I
then we
said
can
that in my,
attending.
in my
I'll speak for
update.
Steve on that. They will publicly, since he sounds like he's going to have one of us swimming with the fishes pretty soon if we're not careful. It will be publicized, and I believe that any drafts of the new PI or the proposed changes will also go on the website. I believe that
Yeah,
that's
that's
been
fine.
the implementation committee's practice in the past, that as drafts move forward, they do go on the website. Every public notice is given through the website, and I'm sure that
We'll get Matt or somebody, whoever, Matt Bauman.
exactly. So
And the
absolutely,
other-
and
the
I
other
believe me,
thing-
we understand the importance of making this.
Before it's
not gonna
even
be.
draft, like, just have us be part of the conversation, and then we can build a richer document.
And that-
And the thing also, too, Christine, is, like I said earlier, we're going to try to have them at 9 in the morning or 7 at night, just to try to get everybody involved, which, you know,
Appreciate that.
oh yeah, not a problem.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Anyone? Okay. Being no further action, no further agenda, I look to a motion to call the meeting,
So
close
moved.
meeting. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you.